Hi, I'm Deborah, business owner and mom to Gen Z kids on a mission to make sure they get hired and become financially independent as soon as possible. If you're a parent wanting to get your kids hired or a new job seeker desperately trying to get hired, this show is for you, and I am so glad you're here. Hi, everyone. Welcome back again. So, as you know, this podcast is all about helping parents guide your Gen Z kids into the workforce, and also for Gen Z kids too, so that they can get actionable tips and advice towards financial independence. But every so often, I want to share a personal story, kind of like what I did last week as well. And the one I want to tell you about today is about the last time I told my oldest drove home instead of flying home. Now, these stories might seem like a detour from my usual topics, but they're actually part of a bigger picture, so stick with me here. Why? Because real life experiences often hold lessons about preparation, problem solving, and making smart decisions, whether it's about career planning or something as simple as a road trip. So by sharing these moments, I hope to keep things relatable while continuing to give you insights that apply to both life and your kids' career readiness. So for me, all of these situations make for not only great stories to share and laugh at after the fact, but also because they are invaluable real life experiences. And this story I'm about to share is one that will be shared in my family for generations to come. So get ready. So as I've mentioned before, my oldest goes to college in Utah, and it's a 10-hour drive from our house to his school. Now, many of you listening might think, well, that's not really that far. But it really is a haul, especially when he's driving alone and if he encounters any inclement weather, whether that be snow or heat or whatever. So a quick backstory is when we sent him back to Utah in August to start his third year, he packed his Jeep to the brim with all of his stuff, tons of clothes. He took furniture from our house to take back to his house. And literally not 10 minutes after he left our house, the morning he got on the road, he got a blowout on the freeway. And it was a Sunday morning at 6 a.m. because he wanted to get an early start. And because his car was packed to the brim, his spare tire was buried. But I don't even think it was a full-size spare tire anyway, so he wouldn't have been able to make it to Utah on the spare. Not to mention the fact that where is he going to put all this stuff on the side of the highway when AAA comes? It wasn't feasible. So we advised him to call AAA and get towed back to the house, where then we would have to wait for tire shops to open up on a Sunday, which apparently is 10 a.m. Because I had to see who had the tire size in stock. Because at this point, I can't tow him directly to the tire shop, not knowing if they even have the tires because we need them last minute. So he was already 4 hours behind schedule at 10 a.m. when I called the shop to find out who had the tires, and we haven't even had them replaced yet. So it was at this point that my husband checked the other 3 tires and advised that we change all 4 at the same time since the other 3 were not new. And it's just best practice, especially when driving long distances, to have all 4 tires with the same wear. Okay, fine. So I was able to find a tire shop with his tires in stock, and having the car towed there again for the second time in one day, he was finally back on the road at 2 p.m. and $1,200 later. So wonderful being a parent. Nightmare. Okay, now fast forward to fall break. That's something that his school does. And now that he's in a house and not a dorm, coming home for fall break isn't really top priority. Last year, I think he did stuff with friends. So I wasn't sure if he had plans again with friends this time, so I didn't even offer to buy him a plane ticket home. Well, he ended up deciding during break that he wanted to come home for a few days, and he opted to drive his car, and he was going to bring a friend. So as I've mentioned before, I'm not a huge fan of this 10-hour drive. But he is a 21-year-old man, so I was probably just being overprotective and a crazy mom. I'll own that. And I remember thinking at the time, buying a last-minute plane ticket will be so overpriced, and I didn't even give that a second thought. Well, I'm here to report that boy was I wrong, and this would be the last time I ever hesitated buying a last-minute expensive plane ticket. So he and his friend headed out on the road. And he called me just before he left to tell me that his washer was on the fritz, so he was bringing home all of his dirty clothes. He was laughing, telling me that he shoved everything in big black trash bags in the back of his car, and none of it was in luggage. No big deal, right? Since he was just driving straight home. Important to note that the day he was driving home, it was 105 degrees in Utah, Nevada, and California, the 3 states he drives through. So about 5 hours into the drive, I got a call from him that his car broke down on the side of the road. Here we go again. This time was equally inconvenient as the tire saga in that he was about 2 hours outside of any major city and AAA indicated they wouldn't be able to get to him for 3 hours. So my son and his friend couldn't just sit in the hot car that wouldn't start. It became an oven. So they ended up getting out and walking around in the 105-degree heat on the side of the road. And of course they didn't have water with them, because these are not things you think about until you're sitting on the side of a highway waiting for AAA and crippling heat. Now, at this point, my mom anxiety was cranking. I felt so bad for them. My husband was trying to troubleshoot the car problem over the phone, getting nowhere. I was trying to find the nearest Jeep dealership for the car to be towed to arrange for it to be left after hours with keys in a drop box. All things my son had no idea how to navigate. The nearest Jeep dealership ended up being just 2 hours away in none other than Las Vegas. So I arranged with the service manager for the car to be left and to contact me when they were open the following day. This all was happening on a Tuesday night, and now my kid and his friend were basically stranded in Las Vegas. The only saving grace here is that both boys were 21. Thank God. Because honestly, being in Las Vegas under 21 is very difficult. I don't even think you can check into a hotel in Vegas under 21. Don't quote me on that, but it's a very 21-year-old driven town for sure. So that was my saving grace there. So I scrambled to find them a room at the last minute that didn't cost them a fortune. Now, on any other Tuesday night in Las Vegas, this would have been easy. But on this particular Tuesday night, the Tropicana Hotel was being imploded, and for some reason due to this, the city was flooded with tourists to watch it. Just my luck, so elevated hotel room prices. The cheapest room I could find was the Flamingo for $450. And anyone that stayed at the Flamingo knows that that's a total ripoff for that hotel. However, out of sheer desperation, I booked it. I called my son back to explain all the instructions about what to do when the AAA driver got there, making sure to ask him to stop and get them food and water, and of course offering the driver dinner as well, where to leave the keys at a Jeep dealership after hours, how to fill out the form for the lockbox, all things he had never done before. The other issue that had me in a complete panic at this point was remembering that all of his dirty clothes are in trash bags. He didn't bring any luggage. So now I have this image of two college kids walking through a Vegas hotel and casino with trash bags. Now, I'm sure I was way overthinking this because after all, it's Vegas and anything goes. And I don't really care about like how it looks socially. That really didn't bother me one bit, of course. But my mind, I'm thinking this is bad optics from a security standpoint. I'm just wondering like what the hotel security is going to think when they see two young men who I'm sure are very disheveled and dirty from their fiasco on the side of the road in the heat, walking through a hotel lobby carrying several large black trash bags. Bad optics, plain and simple. So now I'm navigating, explaining this to my son, who absolutely thinks I'm nuts and going over way too many instructions as he tells me, "Mom, calm down. I have a backpack I can toss things into." Thank sweet baby Jesus. So he grabs essentials for the night in his backpack and calls an Uber from the closed Jeep dealership where he left the car, and he Ubers to the Flamingo. Now, if you're doing the math in your head, at this point I'm already out. $60 for food and water and tip for the tow truck driver, $450 for the hotel, and $25 for Uber to the hotel. And remember, I didn't want to buy the plane ticket. Silly me. After this long ordeal, my husband and I finally breathed a sigh of relief that our son is safe and decided to shift our focus on making lemonade out of lemons. We agreed that he didn't really get to celebrate turning 21 on his actual birthday, as none of his friends at the time were 21, and that makes for a very anticlimactic 21st birthday when you can't go to the bars with your friends. So we call him to tell him, hey, why don't you just enjoy the night as your 21st birthday and go have a nice dinner and drinks and gambling on us. The other form of lemonade was that his friend's family was willing to drive to pick up the boys from Vegas the next day and bring them back to California. Hallelujah. My husband and I were so grateful, as this saved us so much time on a Wednesday in the middle of the week. So we told our son to enjoy the night. He was so excited. We went to sleep knowing we'd be dealing with the car issue the next day, and all of that entailed. Well, the next morning I woke up, checked my phone, and realized the plot had thickened. I was immediately reminded that my 21-year-old son was in Sin City. I chuckled a bit, and my husband and I had a good laugh as we read charge after charge after charge of notifications at a strip club. Now, many of you listening might be thinking, oh my God, I would be livid. I was not at all. He was in Vegas for the first time as a 21-year-old, and clearly a steak dinner, martinis, and a blackjack table were not his priority. Obviously, I don't know what I was thinking. And
because he was in Vegas, I wanted to ensure he was safe and had not made any irreparable decisions that would change his life trajectory, such as a face tattoo, getting arrested, or kidnapping a tiger like in the movie The Hangover. That was my main concern. And since our family's on Life 360, I was able to see, okay, it's the morning, he's in his hotel room. Now I just have to make sure he doesn't sleep through checkout and I get another late fee. So for a financial recap at this point, we're $60 for food and tow truck driver tip, $4.50 for the hotel, $25 for Uber to the hotel, $120 in random charges at the Flamingo, and about $1,000 in charges at the strip club. Yeah. So once I got a hold of him, he confirmed there was no face tattoo, and he was honestly completely deflated and felt terrible about how much money was spent. He brought it up. I didn't even have to tell him. I felt so bad. I assured him. I said, honey, we're not mad. Let's just file this under your memorable 21st birthday and the last time we ever pay for a strip club. The funny thing was, he learned a valuable lesson that will no doubt have legs to it. He now hates Las Vegas and thinks it's a complete ripoff. Yes, son, that is absolutely accurate. Congratulations, you're a quick study. As he was en route home safely with his friend's gracious family, I went to work dealing with the car. The service manager explained that they were so swamped that they wouldn't even be able to diagnose the problem until Friday. Keep in mind, my son needed the car to head back to school on Sunday, so this clearly was not going to be possible. I would have to make other arrangements to get him back to Utah without his car. Time to buy a last-minute one-way ticket to Utah for $458. The bright side was my son got home safely and managed to get the rest of his clothes in large trash bags from the back of his car before he headed back to California. So we got to work on his mounds of laundry while he shared all kinds of details with us about his Vegas adventures. It was honestly wonderful. Sounds nuts, I know. But because we didn't demonize him, he opened up about all of it. It was yet again another moment of our son, now a grown man, realizing his parents truly are there to help, support, and guide him. And that now includes how to navigate breaking down in the middle of the desert and not getting ripped off in Las Vegas. Late Friday afternoon, I heard from the Jeep dealership. I was in Home Goods with my husband. We were there returning something, and we both literally had to sit down as the advisor told us what was wrong with the car. Both batteries needed to be replaced. Apparently, there's a battery for the car, and there's a battery for the auto start on the car. Who knew? The radiator was cracked and needed to be replaced, and the fuel pump also needed to be replaced, totaling $2,900. Our total for this fall break home was now at about $5,000. My husband, who is a car guy, agreed we had no choice but to have it fixed at that dealership. What else could we do? Have it towed somewhere else and shop the price? No way. The car was in Nevada. Our son was in California. We had to get him back to Utah. The car was ready the following Tuesday. And at this point, we had already flown our son back to Utah on Sunday because he had classes that week. And now we have the additional financial burden of how to get the car back to Utah the most expeditious and inexpensive way possibly. But how? Our son certainly couldn't burden a friend to drive him to get it, as it was 6 hours away from his school. He couldn't miss school to go drive and get the car and drive it back. That would take another full 12 hours on the low side, and I'm not making that mistake again. Vegas is 4 hours from us, and even if my husband took the time off work to fly to Vegas to get the car to drive it up to Utah, he would still have to fly home, so 2 flights, that would be crazy timing-wise and financially. The cheapest way to get the car back to our son was to have a car transport company pick it up and trailer it back to him. Crazy, I know, but that's what we did for another $600. This entire fiasco put us just under $6,000. And rest assured, a fall break we will never forget. It certainly left an impression on us all and functioned as a bit of a crash course of adulting on our son. He learned the invaluable lessons of always bring plenty of food and water on road trips, pack some clothes in an actual bag in case you need to leave your car, stay away from strip clubs, and always fly home for quick trips. But most importantly, your parents love you and will always support you, even when you screw up. Side note, this would have been a whole different story if I had a daughter stranded on the side of the road in the desert for 3 hours. I cannot imagine that terror. That is a fate I rarely worry about with sons. In that vein, I don't mean to sound at all cavalier about the ridiculous amount of money spent. It sucked. It was unexpected. But this situation could have been so much worse. Fortunately, it was only money, and that can always be dealt with and replaced. Parents, always buy the plane tickets home, even if it's last minute. Trust me on this one. Okay, as always, I hope you have enjoyed this episode. If so, please do share it with your friends. And I have one more episode for the rest of the year, and then I will be back in January. In the meantime, I hope everybody is enjoying December and Christmas shopping and all that comes. Take care.